The words hit me like a slap across the face in front of 12 people. "Let's not pretend she matters here," my boss Derek said, his voice dripping with condescension as he gestured dismissively toward me during our biggest client presentation of the quarter. I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment as the entire conference room fell silent. The mahogany table suddenly felt massive between us, and I could feel every pair of eyes in that glass-walled meeting room boring into me. Outside, Manhattan's skyline glittered in the afternoon sun, but inside, I wanted to disappear into the gray carpet beneath my feet. It wasn't the first time Derek had humiliated me, but it was certainly the most public. Just last week, he told our team during the morning briefing that some people need to know their limitations. The way his eyes had lingered on me made it clear who he meant, but this was different. This was in front of Marcus Chen, the client I'd personally courted for 6 months. Marcus Chen, our potential million-dollar client, shifted uncomfortably in his tailored navy suit. His assistant Sarah raised her eyebrows, clearly shocked by what she'd just witnessed. The 2 junior associates from Marcus's company exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of surprise and secondhand embarrassment. Even my own colleagues, people I'd worked alongside for 3 years, stared down at their laptops, too uncomfortable to meet my gaze. As I was saying, Derek continued, straightening his tie with that smug smile I'd grown to hate, our senior team will handle all strategic decisions moving forward. Emma here is more of a support role. The word support felt like another slap. My hands trembled slightly as I clutched my presentation folder, the same folder containing the detailed market analysis that had convinced Marcus to consider our firm in the first place. 3 months of research, countless late nights, weekends sacrificed, personal relationships strained, all dismissed in 8 words that would echo in my mind for weeks. The fluorescent lights felt harsh against my skin, and I could hear my own heartbeat thundering in my ears. The silence stretched unbearably. I could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning, the distant sound of traffic from the street below, even the quiet clicking of keyboards from the cubicles beyond the glass walls. Everyone seemed frozen, waiting to see what would happen next. But something shifted in Marcus's expression. He leaned forward, his dark eyes narrowing as he studied Derek's face with the intensity of someone who'd built his empire by reading people accurately. "Excuse me," he said slowly, his voice carrying the weight of someone who commanded respect in boardrooms across the country. "But wasn't Emma the one who personally handled our preliminary negotiations? She's the reason we're even sitting here today." Derek's confident smile faltered for just a moment. "Well, yes, but she spent hours understanding our company culture, our needs, our vision," Marcus continued, his voice growing firmer. "She's the one who proposed the innovative solutions that got our attention. Then I think she very much matters here." The room's energy changed instantly, like electricity crackling through the air. I could see Derek's face reddening, his jaw tightening as he realized he'd made a critical error in judgment. I felt a surge of validation wash over me, but also a dangerous spark of something else. An idea was forming in my mind, one that would either save my career or destroy it completely. Because if Marcus valued my contributions this much, maybe it was time to let him know exactly how I'd been treated. That night, I sat in my cramped Brooklyn apartment, staring at my laptop screen as rain drummed against the windows. The city's neon lights blurred through the water droplets, creating abstract patterns on my wall that seemed to mirror the chaos in my mind. My Chinese takeout grew cold as I scrolled through every email, every document, every piece of correspondence between our firm and Marcus Chen's company. The humiliation from earlier still burned in my chest, but now it was fuel for something bigger. Derek had made one crucial mistake. He'd assumed Marcus would simply accept his dismissal of me without question, but I'd seen the look in Marcus's eyes, the disapproval, the genuine surprise that someone would speak about their team member that way in front of clients. My phone buzzed with a text from my colleague Jenny. "Are you okay?" What Derek said today was completely out of line. Sarah from Marcus's team asked me afterward if that's how our company normally treats employees. I stared at the message for a long moment, my heart racing as I realized the implications. The client's team had been talking about Derek's behavior. This wasn't just about my hurt feelings anymore. This was about our company's reputation. I typed back, "I'm fine, just thinking about next steps." But I wasn't fine. I was angry, hurt, and tired of being invisible in a company where I'd given everything. The beige walls of my apartment felt like they were closing in as I remembered every snide comment, every time Derek had taken credit for my work, every meeting where I'd been talked over or ignored. Last month, he'd actually said in front of the entire team, "Let's let the professionals handle this," when I'd tried to contribute to a strategy discussion. I opened my laptop and began typing. Not just random thoughts, but a detailed timeline of every interaction, every dismissive comment, every instance where Derek had undermined me professionally. The pattern was clear and consistent. He'd been systematically trying to diminish my role in front of clients and colleagues alike. Then I found it. An email from Marcus's assistant 3 weeks ago, specifically praising my exceptional understanding of our company's needs and professional approach to problem solving. She'd copied Derek on the email, but he'd never acknowledged it. In fact, that was the same week he'd reassigned me to administrative support for what he called a more appropriate fit. The next morning, I walked into the office with a different energy. The marble lobby, with its intimidating corporate art and the sound of expensive heels clicking across polished floors, didn't intimidate me anymore. I had a plan, and more importantly, I had documentation. I knocked on Derek's corner office door, my heart pounding but my resolve steady. Through the glass, I could see him leaning back in his leather chair, probably already planning how to present my work as his own to the client. "Come in," he called, barely looking up from his phone. "Derek, I need to discuss yesterday's meeting," I said, closing the door behind me. The office smelled like expensive cologne and coffee, and his degrees hung on the wall like trophies of superiority. He finally looked at me, that same dismissive expression from yesterday creeping across his face. "Look, Emma, I know you're upset, but you need to understand your place in this company. You're junior level. The client doesn't need to be confused about who's running the show." There it was again, another phrase designed to put me in my place. Understand your place. The words stung, but they also strengthened my resolve. "Actually, Derek," I said, pulling out my phone, "Marcus Chen's assistant called me this morning. Apparently, after yesterday's meeting, Marcus specifically requested that I be the primary contact for his account moving forward." The lie rolled off my tongue smoothly, but Derek's reaction told me everything I needed to know about how much this client meant to him, and how much trouble he knew he was in. Derek's face went through a fascinating transformation, from smugness to confusion to barely controlled panic. He set his phone down with deliberate care, as if sudden movements might make the situation worse. The expensive leather of his chair creaked as he leaned forward, and I could see the wheels turning behind his eyes. That's not how we do things here, Emma," he said, his voice tighter than usual. The morning light streaming through his floor-to-ceiling windows cast harsh shadows across his face, making him look older than his 42 years. "All client communications go through department heads. You know that." I pulled out my phone and pretended to check a message, letting the silence stretch between us. The office's air conditioning hummed softly, and I could hear the distant sound of traffic from the street below, mixed with the quiet murmur of conversations from the cubicles outside his glass-walled office. "He was quite specific," I continued, keeping my voice steady and professional. "Said he was impressed by my dedication and wanted to work directly with me on the implementation phase. Apparently, he found yesterday's meeting illuminating." Those were his exact words. Derek's jaw tightened visibly. I could practically see the gears turning in his head as he calculated the potential disaster of losing our biggest client because of his public humiliation of me. The Marcus Chen account wasn't just large. It was the kind of career-defining project that could make or break quarterly reviews. "This is ridiculous," he muttered, running his hand through his perfectly styled hair. "I'll call him myself and straighten this out. There's obviously been some kind of misunderstanding." "Be my guest," I said, standing up from the uncomfortable chair across from his desk. But I should mention, he seemed particularly interested in discussing company culture and how team members are treated during client presentations. He asked several pointed questions about our management structure. The words hung in the air like a threat, and we both knew it. Derek had humiliated me in front of a client who clearly valued respect and professionalism. Now that client was asking questions about how our company operated behind closed doors. He also mentioned I added, pausing at the door, that his assistant Sarah was quite disturbed by what she witnessed yesterday. Apparently, she's never seen a senior manager dismiss a team member so publicly in front of clients. Derek's face had gone pale now, and I could see a thin line of sweat forming along his hairline, despite the aggressive air conditioning. 3 hours later, I was back in that same conference room, but this time the dynamic was completely different. Derek sat stiffly at one end of the mahogany table, his usual confidence replaced by visible tension. His hands fidgeted with his Mont Blanc pen, and he kept glancing at his phone as if expecting salvation to arrive via text message. Marcus Chen's team occupied the other side of the table, and the atmosphere was notably cooler than our previous meetings. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the polished surface, and the city noise felt muted through the thick glass windows, as if the whole world was holding its breath. "I want to be clear about something," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who'd built a multi-million-dollar company from nothing. His dark suit was impeccable, but his expression was stern. "The reason we're considering your firm isn't because of flashy presentations or corporate hierarchies. It's because Emma took the time to understand our needs and treated our business with genuine respect." Derek forced a smile that looked more like a grimace. "We completely understand, Mr. Chen. Emma is certainly valued on our team." Marcus's assistant Sarah actually scoffed at that, and she wasn't subtle about it. The sound cut through the room like a knife, and I had to bite back a smile. Even the junior associates from Marcus's company were exchanging glances that clearly said they weren't buying Derek's sudden change in tone. "Which is why," Marcus continued, his eyes boring into Derek's, "we'd like Emma to be our primary point of contact for this project. We believe in working with people who share our values of mutual respect and professional integrity." The room fell silent, except for the soft hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of construction from the street below. Derek's pen had stopped moving entirely, and I could see him struggling to maintain his composure. 6 months later, I stood in the exact same conference room, but everything had changed. The Marcus Chen account had become the most successful project in our company's history, exceeding initial projections by 40% and generating referrals that had tripled our client base. I was no longer the invisible junior employee who could be dismissed with a wave of Derek's hand and a cutting remark. "Congratulations, Emma," our CEO Margaret said, sliding a thick envelope across the mahogany table. Her smile was genuine, proud even. "The promotion to senior account director is well-deserved." The board was unanimous in their decision. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan stretched out before me, no longer intimidating but full of possibility. The late afternoon sun painted everything in golden light, casting warm shadows across the conference table where I'd once been humiliated. For the first time in years, I felt like I truly belonged in this glass tower, in this room where decisions were made and careers were built. Derek sat at the far end of the table, his expression carefully neutral, but his discomfort obvious to anyone who knew him well. He'd spent the last 6 months watching me work directly with Marcus, taking meetings he used to lead, making decisions he used to control. The dynamic had shifted so completely that other clients began specifically requesting me, citing my collaborative approach and genuine respect for partnership. The transformation hadn't been subtle. Within 2 months of the Marcus Chen project launch, 3 other major clients had made similar requests. Each time they mentioned the same things: professionalism, respect, genuine interest in their success. Word traveled fast in corporate circles, especially when it came to which firms treated their clients as true partners versus those that maintained rigid hierarchies. "I have to admit," Marcus had said during our final project review meeting the week before, leaning back in his chair with satisfaction, "working with Emma has been refreshing. It's rare to find someone who combines genuine competence with authentic respect for their clients. She never made us feel like we were just another account number." The words were simple, but they meant everything to someone who'd been told she didn't matter. More importantly, they had been said in front of Margaret and 2 other board members who'd attended the meeting. As the congratulatory meeting ended and people filed out of the conference room, Derek lingered behind. The office was quieter now, with most employees having left for the day. Through the glass walls, I could see the cleaning crew moving silently through the cubicles, and the city lights were beginning to twinkle in the deepening twilight. "You played this well," he said finally, his voice lacking its usual condescension. There was something almost like respect in his tone, though it was clearly difficult for him to admit. I underestimated you completely. I gathered my papers, taking my time to respond. The leather portfolio that had once felt like a shield now felt like a symbol of my success, filled with contracts, commendations, and client testimonials that had earned me this moment. You know what the funny thing is? I said, looking directly at him for the first time in months. I never had to pretend to matter. I just had to let the right people see that I did. And it turned out, the right people were the ones paying our bills. Derek's expression tightened, but he said nothing. We both knew that his approach, the public dismissals, the casual humiliation, the constant reminders of hierarchy, had ultimately backfired spectacularly. In trying to diminish me, he'd revealed his own insecurities and poor judgment to the people who mattered most. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I'm sorry about how I handled things. It was unprofessional. The apology hung in the air between us. It was genuine, I could tell, but it was also 6 months too late and motivated more by career preservation than actual remorse. As I walked out of that conference room for the last time as a junior employee, I thought about the words that had started it all. Let's not pretend she matters here. Those 8 words had been meant to diminish me, to put me in my place, to remind everyone in that room of the hierarchy Derek thought was unshakable. Instead, they had become the catalyst for everything that followed. Sometimes the most destructive words become the foundation for your greatest victories, not because they inspire you, but because they reveal the speaker's weaknesses to everyone who's watching. The elevator doors closed behind me with a soft ding, and I smiled as I descended toward the marble lobby. Tomorrow, I would return to this building as a senior manager with my own team, my own clients, and my own corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. But I would never forget the feeling of being told I didn't matter, or the satisfaction of proving that respect and competence would always triumph over arrogance and hierarchy. The clients had spoken, and they had chosen substance over bluster, partnership over power plays. In the end, Derek had been right about one thing. We shouldn't pretend. But what we shouldn't pretend is that talent and dedication don't matter, or that clients don't notice how you treat your team, because they do notice, and they remember.